let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. I'm good.
Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. On this edition, we're going to be talking about wide receiver Micheal Thomas, and Micheal Thomas returning to practice. But thank you so much for allowing the State of the Saints podcast to be a part of your listening or your viewing pleasure. Let's go ahead and get into it. Micheal Thomas, number 13, arguably one of the greatest to ever do it, is back at practice. Micheal Thomas, look, it's no surprise. Micheal Thomas is one of those guys who, you know, is a great competitor. He's a guy that definitely who you want on your offense. Micheal Thomas was taking the league by storm since he got into the league in 2016. He was on pace to having a Hall of Fame career. And unfortunately, back in 2020, he had an ankle injury against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and his career was never the same. It's sad to actually see Micheal Thomas with so much promise have a little bit of hiccup in the road. But it was great to see him back at practice for the New Orleans Saints. And Micheal Thomas talked a little bit about coming back to practice.
Oh, it's a blessing. Anytime I get to put on the Saints uniform and contribute it and put on the 13 in the black and gold, just to come out here and be around the guys, the camaraderie, that's what I miss the most. Just talking ball. A lot of guys from my school here. It's like for me, it's the older version of just going to school. I guess really like first day of school. That's kind of what it felt like. Just being around the guys, the camaraderie. Talking football with Derek, getting on the same page, talking to the coaches, just game planning, just basically building that camaraderie to be able to build something special and chase something special and win a lot of games.
So it was great to see Micheal Thomas back at practice, doing his thing. He wasn't taking a part in drills, of course, but he was off to the side doing his thing. And, you know, that's what we want to see as fans of the team and as onlookers. We want to see Micheal Thomas out here early, because as long as he was out, it gave us a little bit of a concern, right? You wanted to see Micheal Thomas doing something, and especially a guy who has been in the league as long as he has, regardless of if he's on the field or not. You want to see him kind of around or hearing stories about, you know, him working alongside some of the young guys. And a question was asked to Micheal Thomas about, you know, some of the younger players and what does he see in them and in the relationship he has with those guys?
Oh, I'm very excited. Those are my guys. Of course, Chris is from Ohio State, but before I had got my injury, I was always rolling with those guys. So we kind of like a little, I guess, the big three or whatever. So I wouldn't say big three because we have other, receivers and stuff in the room that will contribute and that have to contribute. But those are just my two rookies last year I kind of took under my wing and kind of was involved with a lot. So just to see their successes always puts a smile on your face, and then just find where I can add value and help them to be successful.
So Micheal Thomas, he is really, really close to Chris Olave. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've seen some of the things on social media, him alongside Chris Olave, outside of the Saints facility. And also Rashid Shaheed, another guy that he embraced, especially, since Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave were here last year. So, Micheal Thomas has taken along that veteran presence, right? And that's what you want to, as guys start to mature, get older, you start to get younger guys to come into the league, and you need those veterans to teach these guys how to be professional. But Micheal Thomas has been injured. He's been dealing with those injuries over the last 2.5 years. And it's great to see that he's actually upright enough this early into the offseason process that he can actually be out there. And it has been a genuine concern because there has been so many people have reached out to me asking me about Micheal Thomas and what I feel about Micheal Thomas. And honestly, I haven't really done too many podcasts on Mike T because, man, we all know what Mike T is. We know what he is when he's healthy. We know what he is when he's out there on the field. He is a difference maker. I know people are more frustrated with Micheal Thomas not being out there more so than actually questioning his talent. Because the last time we seen Micheal Thomas play in real time, he caught a freaking touchdown and he was an impactful player. So anybody that feels like Micheal Thomas can't be the same, won't be the same, I just think that you're sadly mistaken. I don't have a problem with Micheal Thomas wanting to be 100%. I'm pretty sure Micheal Thomas wants to be 100%, just like Saints fans and onlookers want him to be 100%. Let's be honest about this. This guy was on pace to be one of the best wide receivers to ever do it. Definitely was on pace to be the greatest Saints wide receiver of all time. So why in the world would this guy want to sit on the sidelines and not play? Now, some people have made the theory about, oh, he got his money and then all of a sudden, he didn't want to play anymore. But here's the reality. The year he got paid, that was the year he won Offensive Player of the Year back in 2019. So there's no longer a theory there. There's also a theory about him wanting to play for the Saints. And Micheal Thomas actually talked about that as well.
I mean, to me, in my world, I feel like that's just really fluff and, just getting contracts done. But I feel like the organization knows my value. I feel like we're on the same page. We have a very good relationship no matter how the narrative may be. I feel like we've always had, between me and anyone in the front office, we've always had great communication. It was like I don't feel like I ever left or had to sign a contract. It was just the fact that maybe I was injured and it was just off-season talk. But besides that, I knew I was always going to be playing here. I knew I would be the receiver. I knew our priorities for off-season was to get a quarterback and put some pieces around us. So I was always involved. So the other stuff I can't really control. Yeah.
Let's not get it twisted, folks. If Micheal Thomas did not want to be in a New Orleans Saint, he probably would have asked for his release or asked to be traded. The fact that he was willing to restructure his deal tells you everything. I feel like all those people, the conspiracy theorists out there about Micheal Thomas that are still trying to push this narrative, I think Micheal Thomas put this thing to bed. The fact that he actually decided to restructure his deal and come back to be a New Orleans Saints, not a New Orleans Saint, rather. Here's the reality. All those people that feel like, oh, Micheal Thomas is damaged goods. Oh, Micheal Thomas, nobody's going to want to pay Micheal Thomas. Somebody is going to want to pay Micheal Thomas. Somebody is going to give this guy money. Don't get it twisted. If he would have left the Saints this past offseason, somebody would have picked him up. The fact that he is playing for the New Orleans Saints still, I think that it is a good thing. But I will say this, as talented as Micheal Thomas is, as good as he is, I don't feel like you have to put your eggs in one basket. You should not put your eggs in one basket if you are the New Orleans Saints. You have to go out here and make sure that you have a wide receiver core that is formidable. You can't just look at one guy and be like, man, this guy is going to change the narrative of the team. He's going to change the trajectory of the offense. And all of a sudden, you just hoping and praying and wishing that this guy is everything that you want him to be. Now, Micheal Thomas is everything that we want him to be, but the injury history is a little bit alarming. And it has taught you that you cannot just rely on one particular person. We all kind of saw this thing coming. We didn't want it to happen to Micheal Thomas, but we all saw this coming. The fact when the New Orleans Saints tried to just build the offense around Kamara and Micheal Thomas, and all the other wide receivers and pass catchers were just supporting cast. And it left us with the question like, well, what would happen if Micheal Thomas was to get hurt? And we were living in the now, and we were enjoying the one-hand catches and the sideline catches and 149 receptions. But now we're here. And now that you see that Micheal Thomas, I mean, he has that history of being injured, you got to make sure that you are compensating for that. And I think the New Orleans Saints have done a really, really good job with this. They have brought in guys, they have drafted guys that kind of fit that mold, right? Guy like Brian Edwards, you know, he has that same build. Now, I'm not saying he's Micheal Thomas, but if you need him to run some of those routes that are similar to that of a Micheal Thomas, that big body receiver that he is, you have someone. A guy like A.T. Perry that you drafted in the 6th round, a guy that a lot of Saint fans are excited to see. He actually fits that mold. And you also have some other guys as well that are going into their second season or their third season or what have you. So you still have some guys out there that can make a difference. Now, if Micheal Thomas can put it all together, if Micheal Thomas can stay healthy for the entire season, I think that this offense of the New Orleans Saints can be absolutely magical. I think that it can be a really good offense. And the thing about it is you have a guy in Chris Olave that is going into his second year. I feel like is going to emerge to be that top receiver that the New Orleans Saints need. Now, if you can get some production out of Micheal Thomas and you can also have Chris Olave take that next step along with guys like Rashid Shaheed or A.T. Perry or, you know, Brian Edwards, you will have a really good offense. And not to mention the tight ends like Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson. The Saints just signed Jesse James a couple of days ago. So you have some pass catchers, you got some big bodies, and you also have Derek Carr, who is coming in. The Saints signed in the offseason, who is extremely excited to play alongside Mike T.
Yeah, he's a violent route runner. You know, there's a few guys that are like that. I won't start naming them because people get offended, you know. But, you know, there's very few guys that run such violent routes and catch the ball and get back downhill. Like, a lot of guys like to catch that ball and dance around. Like, he gets north and south, you know. Like, he turns what should be 2nd and 5 into 2nd and 2. You know, and that right there changes a football game, you know. And you know, to the naked eye, it's just another slant, or it's just another this route, or it's just another over, but it's not. You know, he catches it. It's just another stick route, but what he's doing after the catch, what he's doing, you know, when he's rolling, what he dictates, you know, coverages. You know, you have to account for him, you know, because he's so talented. He's so aggressive at the catch point. You know, when even if he is covered, you can still throw it out there, and he can body him up in his hand. He extends his hands, strong hands. He's a bigger receiver, so you can trust him with those kind of throws as well. The back shoulder throws, he can win over the top and catch those, you know, late hands. And, you know, those are the things that as I was watching the film, like, it's very attractive, you know, to me, especially when you get all the pieces going, you know, and you add them all and they're all healthy and they're all there. You know, it's what it could be. Sounds fun, you know. It's not, we're not there yet, but it, you know, sure sounds exciting, you know, when you think about it.
The coaching staff of the New Orleans Saints are extremely excited about Derek Carr, his command of the offense, how he's having these conversations with these wide receivers, telling them what he likes, what he doesn't like, how he wants them to run routes. I think that this is a plus. If you put the combination of Micheal Thomas and Derek Carr together, I think it can be a recipe for success. We've seen Derek Carr throw passes to Davante Adams last year. Davante Adams had a really big year statistically. So we know Derek Carr can get the ball into the hands of the playmakers and allow them to do their thing. Micheal Thomas can be that playmaker. Now, I'm hoping that Micheal Thomas can stay healthy. I'm rooting for the guy. I want him to be the best player that he can possibly be, because Micheal Thomas, when healthy, is one of the best in the league. And I just want him to continue to be that guy that we all want him to be. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think about Micheal Thomas returning to practice? What does this indicate? What are you expecting from number 13? And also, what do you expect from the offense going into the 2023 season? Comment down below, like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, youtube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. Facebook.com, search Gumbo Pod Sports Podcast. Also, check out the Gumbo Pod Sports Podcast online at gumbopodsports.com. Previous episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Till next time, all I got to say is,